You! Stop right there! I'm talking to you. Where do you think you're going? Answer me now!
She was just walking through the park on her lunch break. A routine Tuesday afternoon that would shatter everything she thought she knew about the city she served. Within minutes, she'd be on her knees, handcuffed, surrounded by squad cars, accused of a crime she didn't commit. The officer's hand was already on his weapon. Bystanders were recording, and nobody, absolutely nobody, knew the truth about who she really was. What happened next would expose a darkness that runs deeper than one bad cop. It would reveal a system that sees color before credentials, suspicion before humanity. But when her real identity finally came to light, the fear in their eyes told a story that America desperately needs to hear.
Maya Richardson's alarm went off at 5:47 a.m., just like it did every weekday morning. She silenced it with practiced efficiency, her mind already running through the day's briefings, case files, and the mountain of intelligence reports waiting on her desk at the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Metropolitan Field Office. At 34 years old, Special Agent Richardson had spent the last 9 years of her life building an impeccable reputation. Yale Law, top of her class at Quantico, commendations for her work on organized crime and public corruption cases. Her career wasn't just a job, it was a calling born from watching her father, a postal worker, get passed over for promotions year after year by less qualified candidates. She'd promised herself she would rise so high that no one could look past her. And she had. This particular Tuesday morning felt ordinary in every way. Maya went through her usual routine: 30 minutes of yoga, a precisely timed shower, then the careful selection of her work attire. Today, she chose a white silk blouse, a green blazer that had cost her 2 weeks' salary but made her feel powerful, and a matching pencil skirt. Professional, polished, unquestionable. She grabbed her leather bag, the one with her badge, service weapon, and case files inside, and headed out into the spring morning. The city was just beginning to wake up. Coffee shops were opening. Morning joggers passed by. Everything felt peaceful. The field office was a 20-minute walk from her apartment, a route Maya had taken hundreds of times. She liked the morning air, the chance to organize her thoughts before diving into the chaos of federal law enforcement. Halfway through her commute was Riverside Park, a green oasis of walking paths and benches where downtown workers often took their lunch breaks. Maya checked her watch. 7:23 a.m. She was making good time. The park was mostly empty at this hour. A woman was walking her golden retriever. An elderly man sat on a bench reading his newspaper. Maya's heels clicked against the concrete pathway as she walked with purpose, her mind already at the office, already reviewing the witness testimony she'd be analyzing that afternoon. She didn't notice the patrol car that had slowed down on the adjacent street. She didn't see the officer's eyes lock onto her as she walked. She had no idea that in less than 60 seconds her entire world would turn upside down. Maya was thinking about justice, the kind written in law books and upheld in courtrooms. She was thinking about the drug trafficking case her team was building, about the hours of surveillance footage she'd reviewed, about doing everything by the book, because that's what separated the good guys from the bad guys. She was thinking about justice, but she had no idea she was about to become its victim. The patrol car door opened behind her. "Hey! Hey!" The shout cut through the peaceful morning like a gunshot. Maya's training kicked in immediately. Assess the threat. Identify the source. She turned to see a uniformed police officer striding toward her, his face twisted with an expression she'd seen too many times in interrogation rooms. Aggression, suspicion, authority wielded like a weapon. He was pointing directly at her. "You, stop right there." Maya's heart rate elevated slightly, but her face remained calm. This was a mistake. Obviously a mistake. Maybe someone matching her description was wanted for something. It happened. She'd clear it up in 30 seconds and be on her way. She stopped walking and turned to face him fully. Her posture confident but non-threatening. Professional courtesy from one law enforcement officer to another, even if he didn't know it yet. "Good morning, officer. Is there a problem?" But the look in his eyes told her something she didn't want to believe. This wasn't about a case of mistaken identity. This was about something much older, much darker, and much more dangerous.
Officer Derek Mitchell had been on the force for 6 years. He'd never shot anyone, never been investigated for excessive force, never had a major complaint filed against him. By all accounts, he was just a regular cop doing a regular job. But what made Derek Mitchell dangerous wasn't malice. It was the unconscious bias he'd never examined, the assumptions he'd never questioned, the power he'd never been held accountable for wielding. And on this Tuesday morning, all of that was about to collide with Maya Richardson's life. "I said stop." Derek's voice rose as he closed the distance between them. "Put the bag down, now." Maya's FBI training had prepared her for hostage situations, armed standoffs, and terrorist threats. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared her for this moment, for being on the wrong side of the badge she'd spent her life earning. "Officer, I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline now flooding her system. "My name is—" "I don't care what your name is." Derek cut her off, his hand moving to rest on his service weapon. "We got a call about someone matching your description stealing from vehicles in this area. Put the bag down and show me your hands." The world seemed to slow down. Maya could hear every sound with crystal clarity: birds chirping in the trees, traffic humming on the nearby street, her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She could see the elderly man on the bench looking over, his newspaper forgotten. The woman with the golden retriever had stopped, phone already out, recording. "Officer, I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline now flooding her system. "My name is—" "I don't care what your name is." Derek cut her off, his hand moving to rest on his service weapon. "We got a call about someone matching your description stealing from vehicles in this area. Put the bag down and show me your hands." The world seemed to slow down. Maya could hear every sound with crystal clarity: birds chirping in the trees, traffic humming on the nearby street, her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She could see the elderly man on the bench looking over, his newspaper forgotten. The woman with the golden retriever had stopped, phone already out, recording. "Officer, I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline now flooding her system. "My name is—" "I don't care what your name is." Derek cut her off, his hand moving to rest on his service weapon. "We got a call about someone matching your description stealing from vehicles in this area. Put the bag down and show me your hands." The world seemed to slow down. Maya could hear every sound with crystal clarity: birds chirping in the trees, traffic humming on the nearby street, her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She could see the elderly man on the bench looking over, his newspaper forgotten. The woman with the golden retriever had stopped, phone already out, recording. "I said stop." Derek's voice rose as he closed the distance between them. "Put the bag down, now." Maya's FBI training had prepared her for hostage situations, armed standoffs, and terrorist threats. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared her for this moment, for being on the wrong side of the badge she'd spent her life earning. "Officer, I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline now flooding her system. "My name is—" "I don't care what your name is." Derek cut her off, his hand moving to rest on his service weapon. "We got a call about someone matching your description stealing from vehicles in this area. Put the bag down and show me your hands." The earth seemed to slow down. Maya could hear every sound with crystal clarity: birds chirping in the trees, traffic humming on the nearby street, her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She could see the elderly man on the bench looking over, his newspaper forgotten. The woman with the golden retriever had stopped, phone already out, recording. "Officer, I never saw her steal from any vehicles," the woman with the golden retriever yelled at Derek. "Ma'am, step back, or you'll be arrested for interfering with an investigation," Derek snapped. Another patrol car pulled up, and Maya's heart sank further. Officer Jennifer Torres stepped out, a 12-year veteran with a reputation for being thorough, professional, fair. "What have we got?" Jennifer asked Derek. "Suspect matching the description from the vehicle break-ins. Claims she's FBI. Her bag's right there. Haven't searched it yet." Jennifer's eyes moved from Derek to Maya, then back to Derek. Something flickered across her face. Doubt. Maybe recognition that something was wrong with this picture. "Did you run her ID?" Jennifer asked. "She hasn't shown ID. Got aggressive when I approached." "I have been completely cooperative. My federal credentials are in the front pocket of my bag, which he refused to let me access." Jennifer studied Maya for a long moment. Professional woman, expensive clothes, hands cuffed behind her back on the concrete pathway of a public park at 7:30 in the morning. "Derek, uncuff her, and let's check the ID. She could be armed." "Then we'll do it carefully, but something doesn't feel right here." Derek's jaw tightened, but he pulled Maya to her feet with unnecessary roughness and reached for her bag, unzipped the front pocket, and pulled out her leather credential case. Maya watched his face as he opened it, watched the color drain from his cheeks, watched his eyes go wide with the recognition that he'd made a catastrophic mistake. "Oh, Christ," he whispered. Jennifer took the credentials from his shaking hands. FBI badge, federal ID card, and right behind it, Maya's service weapon, properly holstered, properly secured, exactly where it should be for a federal agent going to work. "Get these cuffs off her now." Jennifer's voice was ice. But it was too late. The damage was done. Maya stood there, rubbing her wrists where the metal had bitten into her skin, surrounded by phones recording every second of her humiliation. The elderly man on the bench was shaking his head in disgust. The woman with the golden retriever was yelling about lawsuits. "Special Agent Richardson, I am so sorry," Jennifer began. "Don't." Maya's voice was cold, professional, but underneath it was a rage so pure and hot that it threatened to burn through her carefully maintained composure. "I want your names, your badge numbers, and I want the name of your supervising sergeant." Derek looked like he might be sick. "Ma'am, there were reports of vehicle break-ins and you matched the description and I was just—" "What description?" Maya's voice cut through his excuses like a blade. "Be specific. What exactly did I match?" The silence that followed was deafening, because they all knew the answer. Everyone standing in that park knew the answer. The people recording on their phones knew the answer. Black, female, suspicious. That was the description Maya had matched. "I've been an FBI agent for 9 years, Maya said, her voice shaking now with barely contained emotion. "I've taken down organized crime rings. I've helped prosecute corrupt politicians. I've dedicated my entire adult life to upholding the law. And this morning, while walking to my office to do the job I love, I was handcuffed and forced to my knees in a public park because of the color of my skin." A news van was pulling up to the curb. This was about to get much bigger. And in that moment, Maya made a decision that would change everything.
"Step away from her, right now." The voice came from behind the growing crowd, cutting through the chaos with unmistakable authority. Maya turned to see Assistant Director James Chen striding toward them, his FBI credentials already out, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. James was Maya's direct supervisor and one of the highest-ranking FBI officials in the region. He'd been on his way to an early breakfast meeting when he'd received a text from a friend who'd seen the scene unfolding and recognized Maya from news coverage of a previous case. "Who the hell are you?" Derek stammered, his hand instinctively moving toward his weapon again, a reaction that made James's eyes flash with dangerous anger. "Assistant Director James Chen, Federal Bureau of Investigation. And that," he pointed to Maya, "is one of the finest agents in this office. So I'll ask you again, step away from her and explain to me why a federal agent is standing in a public park with handcuff marks on her wrists." Jennifer Torres looked like she wanted to disappear into the ground. Derek had gone pale as death. "Sir, there was a call about vehicle break-ins and—" "Stop." James held up his hand. "I've been in law enforcement for 23 years. Don't insult my intelligence with whatever story you're about to tell." He turned to Maya. "Agent Richardson, are you injured?" "No, sir." Maya's voice was steady, but her eyes told a different story. "Physically, I'm fine." The word physically hung in the air like smoke, because they all knew the other injuries, the ones to dignity, to trust,
to the fundamental belief that credentials and competence would protect you. Those wounds were far deeper. By now, the news crew had their camera up. The reporter, a young black woman whom Maya recognized from the evening news, was already doing a live segment. Unfolding scene at Riverside Park where an FBI agent was apparently detained by local police in what witnesses are calling a queer case of racial profiling. A police supervisor's car screeched to a halt at the curb. Sergeant Paul Matthews emerged, took one look at the scene. The FBI credentials still in Jennifer's hand, the crowd of recording phones, the news camera, and the assistant director's furious face, and immediately understood that this was about to become a department-ending disaster. "Everyone, let's just calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down." Maya's voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that made everyone freeze. "I am calm. I've been calm this entire time. I was calm when Officer Mitchell shouted at me. I was calm when he drew his weapon. I was calm when he forced me to my knees and cuffed me. I have been nothing but calm and professional, because that's what I was trained to do." She turned to face Derek directly, and he actually took a step backward. "But you weren't calm, were you? You saw a black woman in a nice suit carrying a bag, and your first thought wasn't professional, wasn't businesswoman, wasn't even innocent until proven guilty. Your first thought was criminal. Your instinct was to see me as a threat that needed to be neutralized." "That's not... I didn't..." Derek's voice cracked. "Yes, you did." Maya's eyes were blazing now. "And the most terrifying part is that you probably don't even realize it. You probably think you're a good cop. You probably tell yourself you treat everyone the same. But I could have been a doctor, a lawyer, a CEO. I could have been wearing a sign that said, 'I am not a criminal,' and it wouldn't have mattered, because you didn't see my clothes, or my credentials, or my humanity. You saw my skin color, and you made a decision that could have gotten me killed." The news camera captured every word. The phones kept recording. And Maya kept talking. Because this moment, this painful, humiliating, rage-inducing moment, was bigger than her. It was bigger than one racist cop, or one police department, or even one city. It was the story of every black professional who'd been followed in a store, every black parent who'd had to teach their children how to survive police encounters, every black person who'd achieved everything society told them to achieve and still found themselves on their knees with handcuffs biting into their wrists. I want every one of you to understand something. I am a federal agent. I have security clearance most people can't even imagine. I have a badge and a gun and the full authority of the United States government behind me. And even with all of that, it didn't matter. It didn't protect me. It didn't save me from this." She turned to the news camera, speaking directly to it now. "So ask yourself, if a federal agent can be targeted like this, what chance does anyone else have?" The silence that followed was profound. And then, slowly, the woman with the golden retriever started clapping. Others joined in. The crowd that had gathered to watch a spectacle was now witnessing something else entirely. A reckoning.
The video went viral within 2 hours. By noon, Maya's face was on every major news network. By evening, the hashtag FBI agent targeted was trending nationwide. By the next morning, the Department of Justice had announced a federal investigation into the police department's practices. But that wasn't the end of the story. It was barely the beginning. Maya Richardson didn't take a day off. She went straight to her office, changed into the spare suit she kept in her locker, and spent the rest of that Tuesday doing exactly what she'd planned to do before Derek Mitchell had decided she looked suspicious: analyzing evidence, building cases, and serving justice. But something had changed inside her.
Something fundamental had shifted. Officer Derek Mitchell was placed on administrative leave. An internal investigation would eventually reveal a pattern of disproportionate stops in communities of color. Nothing egregious enough to have raised red flags before, but undeniable when examined as a whole. He would resign 6 months later and take a job in private security, never quite understanding why his career had ended over what he still privately considered an honest mistake. Jennifer Torres would become one of the department's most vocal advocates for bias training and community policing. She'd speak at conferences about that morning in the park, about watching a colleague's prejudice play out in real time and not intervening fast enough. She'd spend the rest of her career trying to make amends. Sergeant Paul Matthews would implement sweeping changes to his department's procedures. Body cameras would become mandatory. De-escalation training would become standard, and every officer would be required to complete intensive training on implicit bias. Not because Matthews thought his officers were racist, but because that morning in Riverside Park had proven that good intentions weren't enough. But the real impact of that Tuesday morning went far deeper than policy changes or ruined careers. The video of Maya's confrontation became required viewing at the FBI Academy. It was shown to every new class of agents with a simple question: "What do you see?" And the answers revealed everything about who was ready to serve justice and who still had work to do. Maya received thousands of messages. Some were supportive, praising her composure and strength. Others were hateful, proving that the racism she'd experienced in that park wasn't an anomaly, but a feature of American life that many people were still eager to defend. But the messages that stuck with her were the ones from other black professionals. The doctor who'd been accused of stealing from her own hospital. The lawyer who'd been stopped by security in his own law firm's building. The professor who'd been reported as suspicious while opening the door to his own office. They all had the same story. They'd all done everything right. They'd all achieved success. And they'd all learned the hard lesson that Maya had learned that Tuesday morning. In America, excellence is not enough to overcome the color of your skin. 6 months after the incident, Maya gave a speech at a conference on race and law enforcement. She stood at the podium in a green blazer, the same one she'd been wearing that morning, and told her story. But she didn't end with anger or bitterness. She ended with a challenge. That morning in the park, I learned something painful but important. I learned that the work I do, the cases I solve, the criminals I help put away, the justice I serve, none of it makes me immune to the injustice that still runs through our society like poison in the water. But I also learned something else. I learned that silence is complicity. I learned that comfort is the enemy of change. And I learned that every single person in this room has a choice to make every single day. Do you see color before you see humanity? Do you see suspicion before you see innocence? Do you see threat before you see your fellow human being? The applause that followed was thunderous, but Maya knew applause wasn't enough. Change would require more than viral videos and news coverage and hashtags. It would require every person in every position of power to do the hard, uncomfortable work of examining their own biases, challenging their own assumptions, and holding themselves accountable for the impact of their actions. It would require cops to question why they saw threat instead of innocence. It would require citizens to speak up when they saw injustice instead of just recording it. It would require all of us to recognize that the system isn't broken, it's working exactly as it was designed to work, and that only by acknowledging that truth can we begin to build something better. Maya Richardson is still an FBI agent. She still walks to work through Riverside Park. But now, when officers see her, they recognize her face from the video that changed everything. And sometimes, late at night, she wonders how many people like her never got the chance to reveal their badge. How many black bodies ended up on the ground not because of what they did, but because of who they were. This is Maya's story. But it's not just Maya's story. It's the story of every black person in America who has ever been seen as suspicious before being seen as human. It's a story that shouldn't still be happening in 2025, but it is. So here's my question for you. What will you do about it? Will you share the story? Will you have uncomfortable conversations? Will you examine your own biases? Will you speak up the next time you see injustice happening in front of you? Or will you just scroll past, the way so many people scroll past stories like this every single day? The choice is yours, but Maya's choice was already made that Tuesday morning in the park. She chose to stand up. She chose to speak out. She chose to turn her pain into power and her humiliation into a movement for change. What will you choose? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this video, and let's make sure that the next Maya Richardson, whoever and wherever she is, doesn't have to go through what this one did.